And so for those of you who are interested perhaps in getting a little bit more information, a little bit more grounding in what acceptance for value actually means, I would suggest perhaps you might go to our website, which is WSSIC.com, which stands for Winston Shrout Solutions in Commerce. And you can go on that website and look at the products and so forth, and there you'll find the acceptance for value DVDs, and I think you can either get them separately or you can buy all four of them, for some kind of a, discount price for getting all four at the same time. But I would suggest that if you think that you may not understand acceptance for value in any kind of depth, that you might secure that information and study it so you'll have a better concept of what it is you're doing with acceptance for value. Now, what we're doing, and there's many experiments going on, and all the time people are developing new approaches, perhaps to add a little bit of strength to the acceptances and so forth. And technically, there's really no reason to do so. But again, we always try to, bring as many things to people's attention as possible. And so one of the things that most recently has come up, and this goes into another technology, but it deals with the use of postage stamps on the acceptances. Now, I don't want to get particularly into postal technology. That's a whole new thought process and might take a great deal of time to develop.
That might be another call.
Yeah, perhaps we could do that at another time. But in any event, what's that?
I said, go ahead. Continue.
Okay. All right. Well, the purpose of using a postage stamp on an accepted for value document is to bring in an enforcement. Now, back in the, let's see, I can't remember the exact dates. I think maybe it's in the 1800s, maybe around 1840 or 70. All right. Anyway, back during that period of time, the various nations decided that they would establish what was called the Universal Postal Union, and it was headquartered in Bern, Switzerland. And the purpose of that was to bring some sort of conformity or unity to the use of the postal services. And so under national treaties or international treaties, the Universal Postal Union was created, and they do have enforcement capability. And so the use of postage stamps on an acceptance for value is actually bringing in an enforcement on the instrument in the event that it is not properly processed. And so the use typically of stamps on acceptance for value is that a postage stamp is placed on the acceptance, perhaps on the lower right-hand corner, and then the individual will endorse through the postage stamp. And what that means is that they have canceled the stamp and closed escrow on the contract. And at that point, the party who does the cancellation by their signature through the stamp becomes the postmaster on that contract, and they also become the judge on that contract. And in the event that the contract is not honored, in other words, if the contract does not close escrow, and if they do not honor the acceptance and do the settlement as described on the document, then a complaint can actually be made to the Universal Postal Union, and inspectors will look into it.
Now, how well is that working?
Very well, from what I understand. I'll give another little nuance to accompany that, and that is the minimum denomination stamp that you could use in such a manner would be a 2-cent stamp. But we have had some conversation from some individuals, perhaps who actually work in that process, and generally I'll have to say that if you're using stamps, probably the best place to send those acceptances to would not be the IRS, but it would most likely be the United States Treasury CID. The United States Treasury CID is a government agency, and they have the charter to do set-off. And so as a result of that, if you, in fact, sent your acceptance to the United States Treasury CID, that might be a better way to go with that rather than through the IRS. Now, back to the denomination of the stamp. 2-cent stamps will work, but it has been suggested that they categorize these acceptances that come in based upon the denomination of the stamp. In other words, the 2-cent stamp acceptances go to the bottom of the pile, and the $1 stamps on the acceptances go on the top of the pile. So if you're going to use stamps on your acceptances and send them to the U.S. Treasury CID, perhaps for a quicker turnaround, one might consider the use of a $1 stamp.
And where is the U.S. Treasury CID? Is it the 1500 Pennsylvania Avenue?
Actually, CID is all over the country. In some instances, they have major campuses like, Holtzville, New York, Memphis, Tennessee, Bensalem, Pennsylvania, and several different places. But generally, you can find a CID officer in all major IRS offices. You have to understand that the U.S. Treasury CID is the oversight for the Internal Revenue Service. And so where you find a major office, you'll most likely find a U.S. Treasury CID officer. Now, a lot of people have been sending their acceptances and some of their acceptances with stamps on them to the Covington, Kentucky CID office. I will suggest that probably they're getting backlogged. And so you might want to, send some of these things to some of the other offices, or actually just walk them in. If you find a CID office or an officer, there's no reason at all why you simply can't just.
Now, CID, is that the same as the IRS CID?
No.
Okay.
No, I specified United States Treasury Criminal Investigation Division.
Got it.
U.S. Treasury CID, not the IRS criminal investigators.
Okay, got it.
Not the same people, not at all.
Okay.
And for the most part, the reports I've gotten back from individuals who've gone in and dealt with U.S. Treasury CID, they say they're very pleasant to work with. I only have one bad report of somebody being treated uncourteously by a U.S. Treasury CID, and I even suspect probably that they were talking to IRS CI people rather than U.S. Treasury CID. But in any event, most of the reports I've gotten from individuals that they have been very helpful and have been able to get down to business and get things done. And so, if in fact you can locate some of these places where you can actually deal with directly a U.S. Treasury CID agent or officer, that might be the very best scenario to deal with some of these things. Otherwise, send it in.
would they have one of those in Portland?
I'm sure they do.
I don't think they have one in Eugene.
They may or may not. You just have to check.
Small enough that they don't. But
well, you might check. Just call down to the local IRS office and ask to speak to a United States Treasury CID agent or officer, and just see if they have one there.
Okay. All right.
Anyway, the use of the postage stamps is a nuance that's been going around now for a little while. It's been in use for 100 years or more. A friend of mine actually went to a yard sale one day and just bought an old trunk, at auction at this yard sale. And he went home and opened it up. It had a lot of old papers and stuff in it. And he found some old bank checks from 1920 that had 2-cent postage stamps on them. So certainly in the 1920s, the people understood the use of postage stamps on negotiable instruments. So this has not been, this is not a new invention. It's just been something that's been kind of lost, to the people's general knowledge and so forth. But if it was viable in 1920, certainly it's viable in 2010. So again, if you want to add a little bit of extra effort into your acceptances for value and so forth, if you want to add a little bit of extra enforcement, perhaps the use of postage stamps might be something that people would want to consider.
I think so. So I got a gentleman on the board. He's asking, could you A for V threatening letters, like you better do this or
you can't. The only thing you can accept for value is a legitimate presentment. Somebody writes you a threatening letter. That's not a present. That's not an offer. That's a threat. And so, no, there's no reason to There's no reason to try to accept for value a threatening letter.
Okay. So you have to get a bill that comes with a coupon.
Or some other kind of statement.
Okay. So that's the A for V is one method of dealing with. Do you have any others that you would like to share before we go to questions?
Sure. There's plenty of ways to deal. Like I mentioned, the acceptance for value is private administrative remedy, and if you needed to take it into the public, you could do so by using evidence rules and other things in a court situation, or perhaps, as we suggested in our last seminar we did down in Los Angeles, it was last month. It was this month. Yeah, the first weekend of this. Yeah, last week, man. I sure lose. I'm wore out, man. I can't hardly tell you where I'm coming or going. But anyway, one of the things that we had brought up there was the use of habeas corpus. Now, many people are confused about habeas corpus, in as much as they think it's only for prisoner release and that kind of thing. But habeas corpus can be used as a prove up on claim. Now, for instance, if there's some kind of let's say you get a tax lien. First off, it's illegal because it's not been properly, as the people in Oregon are well aware of, the tax lien in the county recorders is completely illegal. But anyway, if you wanted to go into a prove-up situation on that tax lien, you could certainly prosecute a habeas corpus in your state court and demand that the agency, the IRS agency or corporation, whatever you call the thing, produce the original signature document that allows them to restrain your liberty. Now, we've kind of avoided habeas corpus for a long time, I think, because people didn't generally understand, how it could be used. But habeas corpus is a civil action in a civil court before a magistrate, wherein a writ is issued for production of documents.